The ANU is the latest major Australian university set to lose US funding as the Trump administration orders institutions to justify why they should receive research grants. Vicki Thomson is the head of the Group of 8 Australia, which comprises the nation's leading research-intensive universities. Vicki, hello to you. So how much do Australian unis rely on US funding for research, and what sort of money is involved?
Thanks, Ros, and great to be with you. The US, for every one of our universities, is our largest international partner, and that in that context, it's a significant partner for our universities. We receive around about $500 million over the last 3 years from the US in a range of research projects, from defence through to aid, health, etc. What we're seeing now is a trickle of research projects which are under examination thanks to this questionnaire that's been sent to our researchers. And what we're trying to do now is really get a sense of just how deep and wide that actual challenge is for us. But for us, and in fact for every Australian university, I should say, but particularly for the Group of 8 universities, we get around 70% of all of the funding out of the US. So our expectation is that the challenge will be quite extensive.
So the ANU is set to lose funding. How many other universities are in the same situation?
So what we know at the moment is that 6 of our 8 universities have received this questionnaire. And the challenge we've got in actually putting a dollar figure on it, or it's this number of projects, is we have tens of thousands of researchers across our universities. And what we're seeing, what we did see back in January, was this questionnaire was sent to individual researchers from their research partners in the US, for example. So it takes a while to trickle up, if you like, to the kind of the core central arm of our universities. What we're now seeing in the last sort of 10 days or so is US government agencies directly contacting our researchers, and it's from a range of agencies. So the Department of Agriculture, US State Department, the Department of Geological Surveys, and others. So we're really trying to get a handle on how extensive this is. But regardless, it may not be a significant amount of funding in that quantum, but what is of great concern is the nature of the questions and what are the implications when we answer those questions. And so, Ros, we've already had one research collaboration which was actually frozen. They were given 48 hours to respond, and then that funding was unfrozen. And then, of course, we've had the news out of ANU overnight, who I understand will be appealing and working through that process. So it's very indiscriminate. There's not just a simple, neat answer to how many or how the US government agencies are actually dealing with it.
Okay. So what is the nature of the inquiries that make up this questionnaire? What are the US authorities, the agencies, interested in knowing?
So I think this is where our greatest concern is. There is no other country that we collaborate with, and we must remember that research is global and the best research happens with partners wherever they are. There is no other country that asks us the sorts of questions that we are being asked in this survey. So the diversity, equity, inclusion questions are being asked, questions around anti-American beliefs and policies contrary to US interests. I mean, they're very subjective. And what we do have, for example, when we do research with EU partners, there may be a question around our modern slavery provisions. There may be questions around our gender equality plans. But this is really going to an ideological context that we've never seen before. And I would suggest to you that if this was a different country asking those questions of us, it would be a very different reaction, right? So our concern is quite real in terms of that, though the nature of those questions. And, one of the questions is, do we receive funding from China? Now, China is our fastest growing research partner. US is our largest, EU as a bloc is our second largest, and China is our fastest. What we don't know is what are the implications we are answering those questions. What are the implications back in the US? So we have spoken to our government. We are speaking to our embassy representatives in Washington, DC, just to see whether we can mitigate some of the consequences of what's happening at the moment.
So the Australian government has told the ABC, Vicki, that it's, quote, engaging with the US government to understand what these measures mean for future funding and collaboration. Do you think the government here is doing enough?
Look, it's very difficult because, we are in a state of flux on a whole range of areas. And can I say, this is not just an Australian phenomena. I spoke last evening with my German counterparts. I've got meetings tomorrow with my US, Canadian and European counterparts. Questionnaires are being sent to US universities and to those universities as well. And so I think in terms of all of the other issues that are on the government's plate, it's very important that this one is front and centre as well, in as much as it possibly can. But I also think there's an opportunity here. We have an opportunity to hook into the world's largest global research fund, which is in Europe, which is Horizon Europe. It's a $95 billion euro fund. For an inexplicable reason, successive governments in Australia have not come to the table. We need to diversify our research funding. We've had lots of conversations previously about how we are funded for research on the back of international students. We've now got the US as our largest research partner. So there's yet another vulnerability there. So I do think that the government is doing what it can in that context of the US, but I do think there are opportunities for us to actually seek a seat at the table with the EU.